I'd like to tell you all of my first transgression of 5785. We started the Torah service, and Rabbi turns to me and says, "You skipped my sermon."
Maybe there's a message in that. I don't know.
Al chet shechatati.
Wait, Shirah, before you leave, I want you to share, and I did this with permission, what one of the twins, without naming him, said to you.
Okay, so you understand how my children love being the subject of sermons of 1,000 people watching, but okay. So last night we were at services. We came home very late, and in the car we're on the way home, and one of them is complaining, "My Christian friends just don't understand. They have the whole weekend off. They can do whatever they want. Their holidays are all lollipops and rainbows, and ours are about tragedy and suffering." So in case you have trouble convincing your own kids.
So last winter, I picked up my grandson, Ari, in Orlando, Florida, where he was attending a B'nai B'rith youth convention. One of the programs was a panel discussion of Jewish leaders who were posed with the following question: what gives you hope for a Jewish future? Most of the panelists responded similarly, saying, seeing a remarkable 5,000 teenagers in attendance bodes well for the future of our people. The last panel speaker wanted to offer a different perspective. The Jewish scholar in residence at Harvard said the following: I imagine my great-grandfather coming to me in a dream. I tell him that the Jewish students at Harvard, where I teach, are going through very difficult times with rising anti-Semitism on campus. My grandfather responds and says, "There are Jews at Harvard? And you teach there?" It reminded me of the movie American Pickle Man. A turn-of-the-century Heschel Greenbaum falls into a vat of pickle brine on the Lower East Side and is never found. In the year 2020, the abandoned pickle factory is renovated, and the Jewish pickle man is found miraculously preserved in pickle juice. He unites with his only remaining family, his great-grandson, and they both grow from the experience. I can't help but think of what it would be like to meet my great-grandfather in a dream. I was born with a different name. My great-grandfather was Rabbi Yosef Lipshitz of Kovna, Poland, probably in a synagogue, much like Paula talked about, the wooden tent-like synagogues. Lipshitz was our real name, an honor name representing a long line of rabbis. My father's side of the family to this day has numerous rabbis as well. My father experienced endless harassment for the name when he served in the Navy. So in order to avoid his children suffering the same experience, he changed my name from M-A-R-C to M-A-R-K Lipshitz. Okay, I'm kidding. So what would I, Rabbi Lipson, say to my great-grandfather, Rabbi Lipshitz, about the state of the Jewish people in America if he came to me in a dream? I'd start off by showing him this beautiful, renewed sanctuary. He would be interested and very impressed. Rabbi Lipshitz then asks me, "Tell me, my great-grandson, was it rebuilt because the Cossacks tore it apart in a pogrom?" I explained, no, it's not the case. But believe you me, we have our own share of problems in the Jewish community in this Jewish year, 5,785. I'm interested. Tell me more, my son. Well, can you believe that we require police security at the door during high holiday services? You're saying the police come here to protect Jews. In my time, they came to harass Jews. Let me tell you, I respond, times are very difficult for Jews now throughout the world. Anti-Semitism is on the rise and exacerbated because the state of Israel is entangled in a very terrible war, fighting Iranian proxies to the north and the south. There's a state of Israel? He asks. Baruch Hashem, blessed be God's name. Tell me more, please. Let me give you an example of the challenges we face. We're approaching an election. a black woman with a Jewish husband is running for president. And the Democrats overlooked a very capable Jewish governor from Pennsylvania for the VP slot. Many think it's because some people don't want too many Jews in the White House. Rabbi Lipson responds, "This is more than I can handle. I'm shocked Jews can even vote." Then I take Rabbi Lipschitz to our family home in the little town of a few hundred people on the coast of Maine. He looks around our yard and his eyes move from side to side. "I'm curious," Rabbi Lipschitz asks. "They let you lease their land?" I explain, "No, we own the land." "So Jews, you're saying, can now be landowners?" Oy, Vesmer. Rabbi sees 17 blue and white star flags of David in front of houses in this little town. And there are 17 flags in the town with the Star of David. He asks, "But the Jews are required to identify themselves with the Magen David flags, right?" I say, no. In fact, the vast majority are in homes of Gentiles supporting the Jewish people in Israel. "I never thought a day like this could come to be," my great-grandfather says. "Thank you, my son, for sharing this miraculous day with me. I can return to my grave with a great gift you have given me, the gift of renewed hope." Then I hug my great-grandfather and awake from the dream. Sometimes it's healthy to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Now, you may dismiss my whimsical musing and tell me I'm an optimist. I'm not. Optimism is the belief that things are going to get better. Hope is the belief that we can make things better. It takes courage to be hopeful. It doesn't take courage to be an optimist. As we begin this new year of 5,785, in whatever situation we might find ourselves as individuals or as Jews, with whatever challenges we may face, we can find courage to hope. The universally admired and respected late Chief Rabbi of Great Britain, Jonathan Sacks, said the following: "Judaism is a sustained struggle against the world that is in the name of the world that could be, should be, but is not yet." In the face of the Holocaust, an anonymous poet wrote, "I believe in the sun even when the sun isn't shining." And I have to tell you, one of our members, I won't point to him, sitting right in that direction, told me just before services that his mother once said to him, and his mother was a Holocaust survivor, that if there is life, there is hope. So this all applies to our daily choices as well. On this day, Yom Kippur, we can see our fasting and the hours here as a negative burden, or we can acknowledge that our physical and spiritual hunger is enlightening in many ways, and know that the hours bring us closer to the final shofar sounding, and the knowledge that we can begin this year with a sense of renewal personally and collectively. Western civilization is greatly the product of two cultures, ancient Greece and ancient Israel. The Greeks gave the world the concept of tragedy. The Jews gave the idea of hope. Every ritual, every mitzvah, every syllable of the Jewish story is a protest against escapism, resignation, or the blind acceptance of faith. Judaism is a sustained struggle against the world that should be, but is not yet. Yes, we have a history of oppression and victimization, as my grandchildren said, but also one of miraculous survival, achievement, prosperity, rebirth, and renewal. Consider the structure of the biblical narrative itself. In literature, some stories end with "they lived happily ever after." Others end in death and defeat, but they all have a beginning and an end. Now consider the Torah. The book of Genesis, the Jewish story begins with God's call to Abraham to leave his birthplace and go forth to the land that I will show you. 7 times God promises Abraham that land, yet he still has to haggle with the Hittites to buy a small grave for his wife in order to bury Sarah. Jacob and his family are forced into exile in Egypt. Genesis ends with the promise unfulfilled. The book of Exodus begins. God calls Moses to lead the Israelites to freedom in the promised land. Instead, a journey that should have taken only days lasts for 40 years. In the final scene of the book of Deuteronomy, we see Moses still on the far side of the Jordan River, granted only a distant vision of the promised land. Again, the expected ending deferred. The Bible as a whole ends in 2 Chronicles 36 with the Israelites in exile again, this time in Babylon. We are almost back to the same location we began with Abraham on his original journey. A beginning but no end. The same is true for Jewish belief. Judaism is the only civilization whose golden age is in the future. The Messianic age, when nation will not lift up sword against nation. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. This ultimately was the dividing line between Judaism and Christianity. To be a Jew is to reply to the question, has the Messiah come? With the answer, not yet. Some of you may remember my predecessor, Rabbi Lance. When people would say to him, I'm not religious, or I'm not observant, or I don't believe, he would always respond in the same way, not yet. The heart of Judaism, there is a belief that there is nothing inevitable in the affairs of humankind. Some renowned Jewish thinkers challenged conventional Jewish thought. Spinoza argued that our lives are governed by natural necessity. Marx claimed that history was determined by economic interests. Freud held that behavior was shaped by unconscious drives. Neo-Darwinians today argue that we are governed by genetic codes hardwired in our brains. In all of these theories, freedom of self-determination is an illusion. The Torah challenges that view. Creating human beings in God's image bestows the quest of freedom upon us. We alone among the created life forms are capable of using the future tense. The Torah signals this by making the first word God speaks, Yehi. The literal translation is, let there be light, a future without darkness. Only beings who imagine the world other than it is are capable of freedom. The Jewish story, still unfulfilled, is about the journey from multiple forms of slavery to the challenges of freedom. If we are free, the future is open, dependent upon us. We may know the beginning of our story, but we get to write the end of our story. One of the most formative moments in the Torah came in the encounter between Moses and God as the burning bush. Moses asked God, what name should I tell the people when they ask who you are? God replies enigmatically in a phrase that occurs nowhere else in the Torah or the Bible. Ehyeh asher ehyeh. No, Jewish translators and non-Jewish translators, they translate this phrase differently. Non-Jewish translation is typically, I am what I am. The phrase means literally, I will be what I will be. Or more fundamentally, God's call is to that which is not yet. Judaism is the religion of freedom, and the faith of Judaism is in the future tense. If we fail to understand this, we miss the very thing that makes Judaism unique. It's no accident that so many Jews are social workers, fighting poverty, scientists and doctors fighting disease, lawyers fighting injustice, teachers shaping future generations, or engineers advancing technologies, in all cases refusing to see things as inevitable. After the Holocaust, Jews turned to the future, building a nation whose national anthem is Hatikva, which means the hope. It's no accident that Judaism has been opposed by every empire that sought to deny people the freedom to be equal but different. It is no accident that Israel is still the only democracy in the Middle East. And so I dream of the day when my grandson, Ari's grandson, will call me up in a dream. He will say, great-grandfather Rabbi Lipson, you will be delighted to know that the country now has a Jewish president. Our freedoms have been protected and preserved for all time. Discrimination against Jews on college campuses is no longer tolerated. Our United States Congress has term limits. And they actually passed legislation. War is a thing of the past. The prophetic words of our sages have been fulfilled. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. Israel is at peace with its neighbor and a light among the nations. There has been great achievement in curing the sick, feeding the hungry, redeeming the oppressed, and the Jewish people have made enormous contributions to those worthy efforts. Global warming is a thing of the past, and the cell phone no longer exists. Free at last, free at last. And all of these things happened not because we were optimists, but because we struggled and fought to make them happen. This is what my great-grandfather, Rabbi Yosef Lipschitz, would have called Yemot HaMashiach, the Messianic age. That belief in the future and sense of enduring hope is what I call Judaism. May you and your loved ones be blessed with a year in which our greatest aspirations are inscribed in the book of life. May we as individuals commit to defying our inclination towards pessimism and embrace trust in the promise of a Shana Yoter Tova, a better year. Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom.